Hey, Pastor Tommy here with your weekly update and sermon teaser. So this past week was very interesting. We had our session retreat, and typically at session retreats, what you tend to do is talk about the state of the church and what do we want to do in the next year. And we didn't really talk about that. In fact, what we talked about might surprise you. I hope it doesn't. You see, what we did at the session retreat this past weekend is we first went through and looked at sort of our past, like what kind of policies have we had that have governed us? Where have we been? What kind of work have we already done as far as organizational and how we structure the church and things like that? And then before we moved forward to talk about, okay, what does God want us to do? You know, you start throwing things at the wall and you start brainstorming. It could be very exciting. Is we decided to do something a little bit different. Is we talked about what does it mean to be emotionally and spiritually healthy leaders. In other words, if you want to have an emotionally and spiritually healthy church, you need to have emotionally and spiritually healthy leaders. And if COVID has done anything, it has contributed to the emotional and spiritual distress, if you will, of leaders. You know, there's a recent Barna poll in August of 2020, and in which 50% of pastors said they were feeling average to lower than average mentally and spiritually when it came to like mental health, emotional health. And I believe that, although I think it's probably low. I think maybe 20 or 25% of the pastors surveyed lied. It's been hard. It's been hard on elders. I mean, people, what do you do when the goalposts are constantly changing? What do you do when you're losing members for no reason other than this pandemic and how people respond to it? And so we thought what would be better to do than to just sort of jump in and start making plans, which when the goalposts are moving, it's hard to make plans anyway, is to spend 9 weeks working our way through this book, The Emotionally Healthy Leader by Peter Scazzero. I first came across this book during my second doctoral residency. It was about leadership, and it's about what it sounds like. In other words, the emotional health of leaders is sort of the foundation of a church, much like a foundation of a building. If it has cracks in it, the building will crack and ultimately maybe fall down. And so a church could have great programs, it could have great administration, it could have great preaching, have all these things, but if the leaders aren't emotionally and spiritually healthy, then the foundation is broken and ultimately it's going to crash. And we see that happen all the time with celebrity pastors and regular pastors, frankly, and so we don't want that to happen. And so what the elders are going to do is for the next 9 or 10 weeks, we're going to work our way slowly and methodically through this book, The Emotionally Healthy Leader. And you are welcome to join us. I'll put a link to the book in the description, and I'll put a link to the introduction by the author in the description. It's not some sort of fad. This has been around for quite a while, and it's quite biblical. I mean, it covers things like, are you focusing on your marriage? Are you focusing on Sabbath? Are you focusing on joy? You know, these kinds of things. And so, if anything, for the next 9 or 10 weeks, be praying for our session because, you know, as the elders go, as the pastors go, so goes the church. And so we are trying to look deep in ourselves and sort of make sure we are emotionally healthy, make sure we are emotionally grounded and spiritually grounded in the gospel in order to ultimately make sure the whole church is that way. So with that said, while we didn't talk about the future at the session retreat, we will be talking about the future this coming weekend because we will be looking at Revelation chapter 5. If you remember, this is the last sermon in the whole Jesus Storybook Bible series, and that's always like bittersweet. It's bitter because it's been a great series, at least it has been for me. It's been a fun series, but it's also sweet because you're ready to move on to something else. And so this week we'll be looking at the book of Revelation. We started, of course, at Genesis, and this week just is going to show the culmination of how the whole plan of God comes together in the person and work of Jesus. And we've been looking at that along the way, but the Gospel of John shows this grand picture of heaven. In fact, the Jesus Storybook title chapter is called A Dream of Heaven. And so I'm really looking forward to looking at it and talking about it. It's amazing because I pulled out the sermon I did almost 9 years to the day on this particular passage. And first I was amazed at just the fact it's been 9 years since I preached on Revelation. It seems like yesterday, and yet it's been 9 years. So with all of that said, I'm excited to look at it. Remember the theme of the book of Revelation? Jesus has won, Jesus will win, and Jesus is winning right now. We'll revisit that this coming weekend. It's a great weekend to bring people, to bring visitors. And, you know, one of the things, Tom Rainer wrote an article called 6 Reasons Your Pastor Wants to Quit. And I remember thinking at first, like, that's all? LOL. But the reality is, one of the reasons that your pastor wants to quit is it says he misses his sheep. You know, it's been like a year since I've seen people. And so I would love to see you come out to church. And if you come out to church, please come up and greet me. And if you're comfortable, like, pull down your mask a little bit so I can see who you actually are. I've had some problems with that. Nonetheless, I'm looking forward to seeing you. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you Sunday. Pastor Tommy, out.